Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. So welcome. Today we are continuing on with our discussion of the Dvaya Prakaranam of the Mumuksupadi by Pilalokacharya with a commentary by Manavala Mahamuliga. So up until now, we ran through the meaning of the Astakshara mantra Om Namo Narayanaya in the Astakshara or Tira mantra Prakaranam. We have now entered the Dvaya Prakaranam where we're talking about the Dvaya mantra. The Dvaya mantra has two sections. The first section is Sriman Narayana Charano Sharanam Prapadye, and the second section is Srimate Narayanaya Namaha. So far, in the Dvaya Prakaranam, we've discussed the word Shri, the word Shri Mat. So Shri, the two meanings of the word Shri. Shri plus Mat, the ending put on Shri. So in both cases, of both parts of the Dvaya mantra, we have this mat or man ending, which is put on Shri. So we have Sriman Narayana in the beginning, and we have Srimate Narayanaya in the second part of the Dvaya mantra. So we discussed the meaning of the word mat, Srimat. Then we discussed the meaning of the word Narayana or Narayanaya, which we've also seen previously in the Tira mantra, because the Tira mantra is Om Namo Narayanaya. So we've understood some of the meaning of the word Narayana. Now we're understanding a little bit more about the word, the next word in the first part of the Dvaya mantra, and that is Sriman Narayana Charanao. So now we are going to discuss the word Charanao. The Charanao is the dual. Now Sanskrit has singular, dual, and plural. It has endings on nouns and verbs that indicate one, two, and more than two. So it's not just singular and plural, but singular, dual, and plural. So the dual case ending for the word charana means feet or foot. Charana means foot. So when we add the dual case ending to charana as charanao, it means the 2 feet. And the reason for this is very simple, is because many things that we see in nature around us come in pairs. You know, you might see a pair of birds, or a pair of animals, or a pair of people, right? A couple, 2 people. Or we talk about a pair of pants, or a pair of other things. Things come in pairs. Many things come in pairs. So that's why this dual case ending is there in some languages, specifically in Sanskrit. So charanao literally means, if we look it up in the dictionary and the grammar book, the dictionary meaning of charana is feet, is foot, and charanao indicates 2 feet. 2 feet. Okay, so let's have a look at the main text and see. I believe we're up to Sutra 144. So up until now, we've done 143 sutras. Now we're going to get to the 144th sutra, and the 144th sutra is going to reveal Pilalokacharya and Manavala Mahamuni going to talk about the meaning of the word charanao. So text 144 is simply the word charanao itself, which means the holy feet. And I could say the 2 holy feet. And here it says underneath, he gives the meaning of stating it in the dual form. The dual form. Right? The dual form means that there are 2 feet. Okay, so let's continue on with text. Very simple. That's very simple. Text 145. This states the beauty of these 2 together and the completeness, purti, of the means or upaya. Right? The Lord himself is the upaya. As we've understood, also accompanied by Mahalakshmi, because she's the mediator, she's the mediatrix. And but the Lord himself is the upaya. She is like the catalyst. We were talking before that she's the catalyst to bring out his compassion for the living beings. So the word charanao means 2 holy feet, ascribed to a pair of lotus feet. So here we have a footnote number 53, where it says a pair of lotus feet, and that is a reference to Periya Tirumoli 183 from the Nalayana Divya Prabandhan. Okay. Peritirumoli, which I believe is by Tirumangayawar. Okay, so it refers to the beauty of the two together, comparable to two lotus blossoms placed side by side. Since the dual form does not admit anything more than two, it also refers to the perfection or completeness of this upaya, which does not tolerate any other aid. After this, he reveals that many qualities of these feet, which are unique to their function as the upaya. Surrendering to the Lord's feet is the upaya, is the means to moksha, to salvation. Okay, so let's have a look and see what P.V. Anangacharya says in his commentary about these two sutras, 144 and 145. So, in the Mumuksupadi Sarata Dipika by P.V. Anangacharya, Sutra 44, 144 says, the next term is charanal, meaning, whose meaning is the divine feet. And 145 says that this term, which is in the dual case, shows the beauty of the togetherness of his 2 feet. The togetherness of his 2 feet, obviously when you have 2 feet, they're together, right? We surrender to both feet of the Lord, and the completeness of the means. So the next term, charanal, whose meaning is the divine feet, because this term is in the dual case, it means a pair of feet. It speaks of the beauty of the 2 feet being together, looking like 2 beautiful lotuses kept next to each other. It also speaks of the completeness of the means. How is that? Even in places where the singular case is used, it can mean the many, using the case of jatyeka vachanam. A jati is a class, right? Sometimes we talk about there being castes and there being classes in society. So a caste is like Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra. These are groups of people. A jati is also groups of people. There might be stonemasons, farmers, these are classes. These are what we call jatis. So here it says jatyeka vachanam. So jati eka vachanam. So eka vachanam means, eka means one, vachanam means we speak or we say. We say that a class is in the singular, is singular. So we actually in English sometimes we use plural for that, but a group of people is considered one group, so it's singular. So here there's a rule in Sanskrit that's saying if you designate something as a group, then it's in singular, like that. So here, even if we use a singular, dual, or plural, it doesn't matter. It means a whole group, right? So here he's using dual, but it also means a group. So and in places where the plural case is used, it can mean singular, right? So there's another rule here: pujayam bahuvachanam. Bahuvachanam means plural. Using plural to show respect. In English, we have this also. We say sometimes we say the royal we, or if I say we are not amused, right? The Queen may say we are not amused, right? So that means that she alone is not amused, but she says we, which is a plural in English, to mean singular, herself, and this is to show respect. So sometimes when we use plural, it's to show respect. In most Indian languages also, if you like in Hindi, there's two and there's up, there's ap. Up means you, but it means you plural, but it also means you singular, respectful. So there are different words in languages, and sometimes we use a plural word to show respect. So then it also says Atmani Bahuvachanam. Well, this is an example of the royal we that I told you in English, that sometimes we refer to ourselves in the plural, right? So we are not amused, right? That's the example. So using the dual case, however, does not allow for singular or plural cases. Okay, this is interesting. So P.B. Nangacharya is saying here, sometimes we use singular to mean a lot of things, plural things, because we're taking those things as a group. And sometimes we use plural to mean a singular thing in the case of showing respect or referring to ourselves. But here, it's the dual case, right? This is a little bit of grammatical explanation here. Using the dual case, however, means that it's not singular or plural. Therefore, the pair of feet means being the means, right? Surrendering to the pair of feet is the means, right? Right? To the Lord's feet. Does not tolerate anything else or any additional means. So neither does it mean singular nor plural. So it doesn't mean that there's any other means. It's only those two because he's used the dual case. Thus, Charnow speaks of the completeness of the means. By using the dual, it also indicates completeness. Okay. So let's go back to the main text and see Sutra 146. Yeah. So now he's going to reveal the many qualities of those divine feet that we surrender unto. So even if the goddess and he leave, the holy feet will not let go, but will remain firm feet. Okay, firm feet. Okay, so he's quoted some firm feet. And this quotation is from Tiravai Moli by Namalwar, 1-10. 1-10. So even if the goddess, Pirati, herself, Mahalakshmi, who is stated to be the mediator in the word Srimat, should say means things about the Chaitana. Oh, even if she should say mean things about the Chaitana, about the soul, right? Even if she doesn't act as a Purushakara and she does, or mediator and present our good qualities to the Lord. And even if one who possesses the superior qualities referenced in the word Narayana, right, who would normally say my devotees would never do that, should reject him, right? And the 55th reference here, right, my devotees would never do that, is from Periyalwar Tirumoli by Periyalwar, the father of Andal, 492. And if we want to see a full translation of that, we can look at, we can go further and look at Sutra 262. But anyhow, should even if Lord Narayana, who looks at us and sees and rejects us because saying that we would never do all these sins that we have accumulated over thousands of millions of lifetimes, right? These holy feet will never let the Chaitanya go. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, so the first part of Dwaya Mantra says, Shriman Narayana Charano. So we approach the Supreme Lord Narayana through the goddess, Mahalakshmi, right? She's the Purushakara, she's the mediator. But here it's saying the importance of Charano, the importance of the word 2 feet of Lord Narayana is that even if we approach Mahalakshmi and she doesn't mediate for us and she's not there, she's not on our side. And even if the Lord looks at us and sees that we're sinful, the Lord's feet, by surrendering at the Lord's feet, his feet will never fail us as an upaya, as a method of attaining, a method of attaining moksha, his feet. So here it's like, it's interesting. It's sort of saying, the feet are separate from the Lord. The feet are considered more merciful than the Lord himself, the Lord's feet. It's a little bit of Shastric hyperbole bit here. But anyway, it's very nice the way it's being said. So even without Sri and Narayana, just Charanal is saving us. The feet are saving us. Rather, by ensnaring him with their indescribable perfection, these holy feet, these 2 holy feet, described as the illustrious Narayan's firm feet, have the strength to keep those who have resorted to them from slipping away. Beautiful. So, and reference 56 here is to Tiruvai Moli, 1 to 10 again, which we just referenced in footnote 54, the firm feet, which is given in the sutra itself. So, the illustrious Narayana's firm feet. Tiruvai Moli by Namawa, 1, 2, 10. Okay. So see, the feet are so strong. The feet are so beautiful, and they're so perfect, and they're so strong that they will never fail us. They will never fail us. And that's why we resort to the Lord's feet. And the Lord's feet are the upaya. Using an illustration, he shows that the soul settles down at the holy feet, not only out of attraction for their many qualities, but also because to do so is in accord with the soul's true nature. Swarupa Anuguna. Swarupa Anuguna. So it's the true nature of the soul. We've talked about this before. It's the true nature of the soul is to be subservient to the Supreme Lord and to serve the Supreme Lord, right? And therefore we belong at the feet of the Supreme Lord. So this is our proper place. This is our proper position at the feet of the Supreme Lord. So let's see what P.B. Nangacharya says about 146 before carrying on. Sutra 146, again, the meaning is, even if Mahalakshmi, who is the mediatrix, and Narayana, who is the all-protector, let go of the Chaitanya, even if they abandon us, his divine feet will never let go of us, of them, meaning the Chaitanyas, of us, right? They have the quality of never letting go those who are attached to them. And we can think of very interesting that Vedanta Deshika has written 1,000 slokas on the Lord's shoes, the Lord's feet. Paduka Sahasra. The shoes are attached to the feet, so the shoes and the feet go together, right? But here we're talking about specifically about the feet. So the commentary here, he says, since it is said that Sriman Narayana's divine feet are seeked instead of saying Sriman Narayana is seeked, right? So it's very interesting. The Acharyas, they don't say, seek the shelter of Sriman Narayana. They say, seek the shelter of Sriman Narayana's two divine feet. That's what they say. There must be some special quality of the feet in being the means, to the feet of being the means. That is the fact that even if Mahalakshmi, who is shown as a mediator, and Narayana, who is shown as a protector in the earlier sutras, let go of the Chaitanyas, right? Leave them, abandon them. His divine feet will not. They will never let go of those who are attached to them. Very nice. So going back to the main text. Sutra 147. The feet of the Sheshi. Again, Shesha means, Shesha is us. We're the servants. We are the servants of the Supreme Lord. We're the property of the Supreme Lord, right? A Shesha, what is a Shesha? That which is controlled, that which is supported, and that which is for the only purpose of the master. And Sheshi means the master. Shesha-Sheshi relationship between the soul and God. So the feet of the Sheshi, or God, is the place of refuge, Turai, where Shesha settles down. Shesha is the servants or the property of the Lord, us. Just as a child places his mouth on the mother's breast. The holy feet are the place of refuge where the subservient creatures settle down and take refuge with their master, Sheshi, in accord with their true nature as Sheshas. So it's the nature of babies to suckle at the mother's breasts. And it's the nature of us, just similarly, this is the analogy being given. Similarly, it's our nature to be at the feet of Sriman Narayana. This is just like when the nursing mother ignores the nursing child, ignores other parts of the mother's body. So the child loves the mother. Mother loves the child. The child loves the whole mother, loves all the mother, but the child especially is most, the suckling child is especially most attracted to being at the breast of the mother to drink the milk of the mother's milk. This is just like when the nursing child, ignoring other parts of the mother's body, puts his mouth on the breast, which is designated just for him or her. He says that this reference to the Holy Fleet also implies the Lord's holy figure. Okay, so first of all, let's see what Vivekananda says about this. Again, the translation of Sutra 147 is the right part of the Lord, the Sarvasheshi, the complete master, right? The master of all, right? That is matched to the nature of the Chaitana, right? So what is the part of the Lord, of the Lord's Tirumeni, his divine form, which is most suitable for the Chaitanas, for the living beings, and to which he becomes attached is his divine feet. This is similar to the baby automatically latching onto its mother's breast. Other than the divine quality described in the previous sutra, it is seeking the divine feet that matches to the nature of the Chaitana. Just as a small baby would seek only its mother's breast, even though she has many other body parts. So too, the Chaitana who reaches towards the Sheshi, the living being who reaches towards the master, will seek only his divine feet. So back to the main text 148. This word alludes to the holy figure, or Tirumeni. Tirumeni means the divine body. Divya Mangala Vigraha, we say sometimes in Sanskrit. Divya Mangala Vigraha, the divine, auspicious, all auspicious Vigraha form of the Supreme Lord. That's in Sanskrit. In Tamil, we'll say Tirumeni. This Tirumeni and Tiruvadi. You'll hear Sri Vaishnavas use these words a lot. Tirumeni means the Lord's form, his full form. Tiruvadi means his feet, right? Tiruvadi. So this word alludes to the Lord's holy figure, Tirumeni, on which the goddess resides, because she resides on his chest. Or sometimes we see deities where Mahalakshmi is sitting on his lap or on his knee, and which manifests all the divine qualities, captivating and drawing toward it, even Shishupala. So it's interesting, it says here, Shishupala. Even Shishupala was not drawn towards Krishna. He cursed out Krishna 100 times and Krishna killed him. So he was antagonistic towards Krishna. So here it says, it's trying to emphasize how captivating, how the Lord's form has so many auspicious qualities, Divya Mangala Vigraha, and which are captivating and drawing the Chaitanas towards it, right? Even so captivating that even Shishupala is drawn. Sometimes we talk about Krishna, or we talk about the Supreme Lord, Sriman Narayana, as being so beautiful that he's considered to be like Kamadev, right? So this is why Krishna is considered to be a type of spiritual Kamadev or Cupid. We say Madana Mohana. Mohana means one who attracts even Cupid, right? Okay. Madan Mohan. The word charna refers to the holy feet, the two holy feet, which are a single part of his body. Okay, so here they're grouped together as a single part of his body. This alludes to his divine auspicious body, as I said, Divya Mangala Vigraha. This holy figure is the residence of the goddess, right? The intercessor, right, referred to in the word Srimad. She is the mediatrix, or she is the mediator, the Purushakar. Yeah, another word for that is here is intercessor. Right, as stated in the passage. The one with the chest on which Sri resides. So this quotation, 57, is from Munram Tiruvandadi. Munram Tiruvandadi. Munram means third, the third Tiruvandadi. So there are three Tiruvandadis there. The Munram Tiruvandadi. So the first three Alwars are called Mudal Alwars. Mudal means the first. So the first group of Alwars, there are three of them. They are Pogai, Bhutad, and Pei Alwars. So they wrote these prayers in the Nadi called Tiruvandadis. It's a particular type of poetic form called a Tiruvandadi. They wrote the Mudal Tiruvandadi, Rindam Tiruvandadi, and Munram Tiruvandadi. So Munram Tiruvandadi is the third one. So the first one is by the first Alwar, Pogai Alwar. The next one, Rindam Tiruvandadi, is by Pogai, Bhutad Alwar. And the third one is by Pei Alwar. So this is by Pei Alwar, this Munram Tiruvandadi, and it's verse 57. That's the reference being given here. The word Pei in Tamil means ghost. So he was a ghost-like figure. It refers to his bhava and his expressions of in his life of that he was in ecstasy and bliss and everything. So anyway, but the word Pei means ghost. So anyhow, Pogai, Bhutad, and Pei Alwars. Okay, they came together one night. There's a very famous story about this. The three Alwars met each other. They were all born before the start of Kali Yuga, a few weeks before the start of Kali Yuga. And they were also called Ionages. They were not born of any mothers, but they were. The story is that they manifest from these different flowers in the ponds next to different temples in Mahabalipuram, in Chennai, in Madras, in Tiruvallikeni, which is Triplicane in Madras, where the Parthasarthi temple is, and in Mahabalipuram, and also in Kanchipuram. So there are these three temple tanks in which there were lotuses or different flowers, and the three Alwars appeared from those. That's the story of their avatarship. So these three Alwars, there was a rainstorm one time, and one of the Alwars was in the rain, and he saw the hut of a sage or a rishi or something, and he came to the hut, and there was a front porch, small hut, and it was night, and he wanted to get out of the rain, so he inquired from the person in the hut, the sage in the hut, can I sleep on your front porch? There's only enough room for him to just lie down, so maybe a foot by 6 feet or something, place to lie down. So he lay down out of the rain. So after some time, a second Alwar came along and just said to him, can you move over? Maybe you can sit instead of lie. You're lying down now, but if you can sit up, then both of us, there's room enough for us to both sit here, right? So where one can lie, two can sit, is what he said. So okay, so the first Alwar agreed. Come on in. You can also use the porch, the front step of the house. We can just both sit here. A third Alwar came along, and it was raining, and he also wanted to get out of the rain, so he inquired from the other two. He said, well, the two of you are sitting here, and obviously there's enough room for one person to lie down. Two of you are sitting, so two people could sit. If we all stand, there'll be enough for three of us. There'll be enough room for all three. So where one can lie, two can sit, three can stand. So the third Alwar convinced the other two, let me come onto the porch too, get out of the rain, and we can all stand there, and we'll be out of the rain, and there'll be enough room for us, like that. So there they all were standing in the night, in the dark night, on the porch of this small hut, and all of a sudden they felt they felt this feeling that there was someone else there. They felt the presence, the great presence, and it was the great presence of Lord Sriman Narayana. He also wanted to be where his devotees were, and he came there, and they felt like they were being crowded. They were being, in a crowd with him. Like there's only room for three to stand, and then he came there, and they felt, wow, it feels like Lord Narayana is here with us, like that. So immediately they began to praise him, like that. So it's a very nice story about the first three alwas. These are called the middle alwas. Sometime, obviously, we should go through the stories of the lives of the alwas and understand how they came to write their holy works in Tamil, the Nalaya Prabandham, the 4,000 holy Tamil hymns. Okay, so anyway, getting back to the point here. The word charana refers to the holy feet, which are a single part of the body. This alludes to the divine auspicious body, Divya Mangala Vigraha. The holy figure is the residence of the goddess, Mahalakshmi. The intercessor referred to in the word Srimat, right? As stated in the passage, the one with the chest on which Shri resides, which we've understood comes from Munram Tiruvandadi, which is by Payalwa, right? Number 57. Then we got into the story about the different alwas. This divine figure also displays the qualities referred to in the word Narayana, right? The divine figure, right? Displays the qualities referred to in the word Narayana. It is of such a nature that it entranced even the despicable Shishupala, who had gone around making many abusive statements, right? As it is said, Shishupala, who had proclaimed many blasphemies. So this is also this quotation, Shishupala, who had proclaimed many blasphemies, is footnote 58, is from Periyalwar Tirumoli. Periyalwar is, of course, the father of Andal. He wrote a big poem called Tirumoli, and that comes from 453. Periyalwar Tirumoli 453. That quote. So, by its beauty alone, meaning the Divya Mangala Vigraha, the Tirumani of the Lord, right? His body, his divine auspicious body, right? By its beauty alone, it dispelled and transformed his hatred, as it is said. So even Shishupala's hatred was transformed by the beauty of the Lord's body. As it is said, the one with the beauty to remove hatred. The one with the beauty to remove hatred. So this is in the commentary it says, and this is also from Periyalwar Tirumoli, right? By its beauty alone, it dispelled and transformed the hatred, as it is said, the one with the beauty who removed hatred, and attracted him to reach the presence of the holy feet. To reach the presence of the holy feet, and this actually comes from Namawas Tiruvai Moli 753. Sometime we can go through and we can look at some of the, hopefully somebody, we can find someone to teach Bhagavad Vishayam, and we can go through the different, knowledge of the prayers of the Alwars, right? If anybody doesn't have this book, right, let me know, and I'll give you a link, and you can download the book in English. It gives the translations of all the 4,000 hymns of the Alwars, like that, into English. So, continuing on, right? So, after this, he gives the meaning of the word Sharanam. So, before we go to the word Sharanam, which is the next word, let us look again at what P.B. Angacharya says about Sutra 148. So, here we are, in the last sutra on the word Charanam. So, again, the meaning of Sutra 148, the divine feet are one part of his divine form. In talking about this part, his entire divine form, Divya Mangala Vigraha, which is the residence of Mahalakshmi, which clearly shows his divine qualities and which has the nature of capturing even those, or captivating or capturing, right, even those such as Shishupal, whose habit was to abuse him, is explained. So by talking about the feet, we actually talk about the whole person, right? So there was two ways of understanding. First of all, we understood the specific qualities of the Lord's feet, and then we understood the Lord's feet to be attached to the rest of the Lord. So we understand that the Lord is the fire, his whole form. So the point about his divine feet implies the same for his divine form. In speaking about the one part, feet, the whole divine form is thought of, right? So we never think of the feet as being separate from the form. Although when we go into the temple, the shoes of the Lord, right, which are in contact with the feet, are touched to the devotee's head in the form of the setari, right, which represents Namalwa. Namalwa is, of course, the quintessential devotee, and he is always at the feet of the Lord, and so therefore he is considered to be the shoes or sandals of the Supreme Lord. So this divine form is the residence of the mediatrix or the mediator, the Purushikara, Mahalakshmi. The divine qualities shown through the Narayana term, the term of Narayana, which we just talked about, right, shine in it, right, in his divine form. It corrects even Shishupal, who abused him in many ways, and accepts him, right? So now let's continue on with the main text. We're going to talk about now the word Sharanam. So Sriman Narayana Charano, and the next word is Sharanam. What does Sharanam mean? So text 149, Sharanam, the upaya, Sharanam means surrender, or means take shelter, right, in Sanskrit. So Sharanam shows the upaya. What is the upaya? The upaya is surrender. The upaya is property. The upaya is Sharanagati, right? Surrendering to the feet of the Lord. So Sriman Narayana, the 2 feet, Sharanam means surrender, right? So Sharanam, the upaya, right, the means to liberation, which will not fail to grant what one desires, which is liberation, the divine eternal service of the Supreme Lord in Vaikuntha, and get rid of what is unwanted. So it grants what we want and gets rid of what we don't want. What do we not want? We do not want to stay in this material world. We do not want to suffer and enjoy the sin and the merit that we have incurred by our different activities through many millions and millions of lifetimes, right? The punyas and papas, the sins and merits that we have, we don't want to suffer the sins, and we don't want to even experience the bliss of the slight bliss or the happiness that comes from the merits either. We don't want that. We want to leave this material world of birth and death, the cycle of birth and death, and we want to go to an eternal place and have an eternal position at the Lord's feet, serving the Supreme Lord, which is our constitutional place and duty, right? As his Shesha, as his Sheshas, as his servants, as his property, as those who are controlled and supported by him, and are meant only for his pleasure. So we want positive and we want negative. We want the positive eternal service of the Lord in Vaikuntha, and we also want the negative to give up everything associated with the material world, the sin and the merit, right? And this material body, etc. So as it is said, the word Sharanam can mean upaya, the house or protector, but shelter. The word Sharanam means shelter. So it can mean a house, it can mean protector, right? Like that. It has different meanings. Sharanam is a shelter. So any type of shelter is Sharanam in Sanskrit. But this indicates appropriately only the upaya, the means to liberation. So footnote 61, this is a quotation. The word Sharanam can mean upaya, house or protector, right? It can mean the means to liberation, house or protector. That's what it can mean. But this indicates appropriately only the upaya, only the means. So here we don't understand it, Sharanam, to mean a shelter in the material sense, but in a spiritual sense, right? So it's not just a protector, any protector, or not just like a husband or a king or who protects the subjects and the wife and the family, right? Or a house, which is a structure, a material structure, which protects us from the rain or the sun, right? But it means the upaya, means the ultimate protector, the ultimate shelter, and that is the Supreme Lord, Sriman Narayana. Thus, and that's stated from Ahiribudnya Samhita, which is a Pancharatra Agama, and that comes in the 37th chapter, 29th verse of Ahiribudnya Samhita. So, thus, even though the word Sharanam can signify protector, house, or upaya, in this context, which context? In the context is being used in the first part of the Dwaya mantra, right? It is a reference to the upaya alone. The upaya means the Supreme Lord, who is the means for our ultimate salvation. Furthermore, the action of the upaya, the Supreme Lord, Sriman Narayana, is the reason for attainment of one's desires and removal of what one doesn't want. Right? He's the reason, the Supreme Lord, Sriman Narayana, is the reason for attaining what we want, which is his divine eternal service, and the removal of what we don't want, what I said, we don't want to enjoy and suffer the merits and demerits or sins that we've accrued in this material world. Right. Thus, for these reasons, he revealed the meaning of this word as Sharanam, the upaya which will not fail to grant what one desires and get rid of what is unwanted. So very, very nice that Manavala Mamuni has quoted here from Ahiribudnya Samhita. Right. So in his Parantapati, which is another book, another Rahasya Grantha by Pilalokacharya, revealed in full what is the desired things and the unwanted things are. So there's another book by Pilalokacharya which we can see, and we'll list all the things that we desire, with what we want, what is liberation, right? And because liberation is not just some amorphous unknown quantity. It is the active relationship of service to the Supreme Lord eternally. So and what is unwanted, right? That's all. Those things are also delineated in this book Parantapati by Pilalokacharya. Also in his Shriyapati, right, which is another book by him, another esoteric book. He presented these concisely, right? So here we have, he's going to mention the things concisely. The things which are unwanted are ignorance, desires, aversions, which result from ignorance, karma in the forms of merits and sins, 4 kinds of bodies, gods, etc., right? And the succession of miseries, internal, etc., right? And this is a quote from, I'm not exactly sure. Oh yeah, this is a quote from Shriyapati, right? Like that. So actually the 4 kinds of bodies, gods, men, animals, and plants, right? And so devatas, human beings, animals, moving animals, and plants, which are also called stavara chaitanas, right? Who are in one place, right? So these are the 4. We don't want those things. So this is a list of the things. The things which are desired are to travel the path to the heavenly realm, to Sri Vaikuntha, which is called the Achiradi Marga, the path of light, to the supreme abode, to reach the supreme abode, Paramapada, right, Sri Vaikuntha, to see the supreme soul, Paramatman, to come face to face with the supreme soul, the supreme person, Sriman Narayana, and to serve the Lord and enjoy his qualities, his endless qualities, right? His Ananta Kalyana Gunas, his unlimited, auspicious qualities, Ananta Kalyana Gunas. So we want to experience that while serving him. We are going to enjoy his qualities. And this is also a quote from Shriyapati. So these 2 quotes. So in succinctly, she's given here the what we want, what we don't want. So thus, these thoughts are worth contemplating here. He reveals a hidden meaning. He reveals a hidden meaning in the statement that the aforementioned entity, the Lord, is the upaya. Okay, so we'll go to that next after we see what Vivianandacharya says about Sutra 149. Sutra 149, according to P.B. Nangachoria, again, the meaning of the sutra is, the meaning of the word sharanam is now explained. Its meaning is that it is the guaranteed means of gaining that which is sought and avoiding that which is not wanted. The second part of the Dvaya mantra is sharanam. The second part of the Dvaya mantra is sharanam, right? Second part of the Dvaya mantra is sharanam. Okay, so I'm not quite sure if it means the second part of it. Okay. It means, its meaning is that it is guaranteed way of gaining that which is desired and leaving out that which is not wanted. Ignorance, the likes and dislikes that come out of it, the good and bad actions, karmas, are that which are not wanted. Going by the Achiradi Marga, the path of light to Sri Vaikuntha, seeking his divine abode, seeing his divine form, and being in his service are that which is sought. And this term is the foreshore means to gain those things. That is, sharanam is the foreshore means. This is the term which means to gain those things which are desired and avoiding those things which are undesired. Back to the main text. Sutra 150, we're now going to talk about the hidden meaning in the statement that the aforementioned entity, the Lord, is the means, right? So this states that the goal, prapya, right, himself, and is the means, prapaka, right? This word, which indicates that the previously mentioned entity is the upaya, Srimanarayana is the means, states that one who is the goal himself is the means. Has the goal been mentioned before? Right? To this he replies, right? The three mentioned before are the goal. The three ideas mentioned in the previous compound word, Sriman Narayana Charano, right, are the goal, right? Number one, he's mentioned the goddess as an attribute, right? The goddess, Mahalakshmi. Two, that he has auspicious qualities. So that first thing is shown by the word Sriman. The second is shown by the word Narayana. And the third, that he has a divine holy body, Charano, right? Unlike what some people say is, okay, we're going to worship the Lord, we're going to worship God. But here, specifically, Charano brings us to a personalist understanding that the Lord has 2 feet. If he has 2 feet, that means he has a whole body. He has a Divya Mangala Vigraha, or what we call a Tirumani, not just the Tiruvadi, not just the feet, but the whole body, like that. These very things are the goal. What are the goal again? What's the goal again? Mahalakshmi, the Lord and his 2 feet, right? So these together are the goal. Indeed, these are referred to in the following passages as objects of the saved soul's enjoyment, right? Because we serve the Lord, we serve the Lord's feet, and we serve Mahalakshmi, right? In the highest world of Vaikuntha, the Lord of the world, Vishnu, whose true self is incomprehensible, resides united with Sri, Mahalakshmi, in the company of his loving devotees. And this is a quote from, attributed to Shaiva Purana. That's interesting. That was a quote attributed to Shaiva Purana, 63. I'm not sure where 63 up here was from Shriya Padipati, and that quote from Shriya Padipati was page 193 of the edition of Shriya Padipati. But anyway, coming back to this sutra, 151, 64, footnote 64 is a quote, apparently coming from a Shaiva Purana. He who knows what is hidden in the secret place, in the highest heaven, that wise person enjoys all pleasures along with Brahma. And this is a quote from Taittiriya Upanishad 2:1. Then the next quote is, the wise ones, Suri, always see the highest abode of Lord Vishnu. Who can guess where that's from? That's from Rig Veda 122:20. Tad Vishnu paramam paragam sada apasanti surayaha vivivichaksuratam tad vipraso panyavo jagvagam sasamindade Vishnu ya paramam param. So it says, Sada Sada means always. Pasyanti, they see. Surayaha, the devotees, the wise ones, the suris, the prapanas, the persons who are serving, the nityas and the muktas in Sri Vaikuntha. They always see the Supreme Lord. So the wise ones always see the highest abode of Lord Vishnu. Interestingly enough, Paramapada also, the word pada means foot. So Paramapada means the supreme feet. We've attained the supreme feet. But it means Sri Vaikuntha. So, if so, then what makes the Lord become the Upaya? Right? So we'll see that in a minute. But first of all, let's see what those two verses have, those two sutras, what Pubiyanamacharya has to say about 1551. Okay. So, Churna 50 or Sutra 50, the meaning again is by stating that the divine feet are the means, right? It is being said that what is sought to be reached is also the means. Right. Previously, it was stated that that his divine feet are the means. Through this, it is being said that the goal or the upaya, right, is also the means, the upaya. The two are not different. The Lord is the means, and he is also the goal. The Lord's 2 feet are also the means, are also the goal. Right? Mahalakshmi is also in the initial means as a mediator, and also the goal, because we serve her also. So, in the part of the Dvaya Mantra, this is Sutra 151, in the part of the Dvaya Mantra explained before, 3 things are shown. His being with Sri Mahalakshmi. So the first word, Srimat, shows that he is always united with Mahalakshmi, that she's always present. And that presence with him is necessary for us to perform Sharanagati 100% without any problem. So they're always, if she's there, then our Sharanagati, our property is always successful 100%. So the first part, his being with Mahalakshmi, his possession of divine qualities, Kalyana Gunas, Ananta Kalyana Gunas, and his divine form, Divya Mangala Vigraha, is shown by the word Narayana. So Sriman Narayana, right? And then Charno, right? And all it shows his feet. As all 3 are to be enjoyed by the Chaitana, right? Charno indicates his form. So Narayana indicates his divine qualities. Charno indicates his form, because it talks about his feet, and his feet are non-distinct from his form. His feet are attached to his form. So, as all 3 are being enjoyed by the Chaitana, right? The living being that is serving him, the Nityas and the Muktas who are serving him in Sri Vaikuntha, right? They're enjoying all 3. They're enjoying his association with Mahalakshmi. They're enjoying his unlimited qualities, and they're enjoying the auspiciousness of his divine form, right? They are the goal to be sought. So they are the goal. They are the goal. So this is an expansion understanding of what the goal is, right? And what the means are, because the means and the goal are the same. That's right. Is there any explanation of the goal, Upaya, right, in what was explained before? In the part of the Dvaya Mantra thus far explained, Sriman Narayana Charano, there are 3 matters which are shown. 1, his being with Mahalakshmi eternally. 2, his possessing divine qualities. And 3, his having a divine form, right? Which are indicated by, respectively, Sriman, Narayana, and Charno. These 3 will be experienced by the Chaitana in Paramapadam, in Sri Vaikuntham, and therefore are the goal that is sought, right? So let's go back to the main text. The main text. Okay. So the question being asked here in the commentary is, if so, then what makes the Lord become the Upaya? To this he replies, just by ceasing his own actions, this one, the Chaitana, makes that one, the Lord, into the Upaya. Just by stopping his actions. What does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? He says, Sarvadharmam prityaja, give up, giving up, sarvadharmam, reject or give up all dharmas. Give up your self-efforts. Give up your self-efforts. Give up your actions. Give up those things, right? Abandon all varieties of religion, or give up paths of self-effort. So just by ceasing his own actions, this one, the Chaitana, the living being, makes that one, the Supreme Lord, his upaya, his means. The soul who is helpless, right? The soul who is helpless and without any other recourse, akinchana and ananyagati, right? Akinchana means helpless, hopeless, right? And ananyagati, ananya means any other, and gati means of going, means of attainment, right? Ananyagati. Just by ceasing his own activity, causes the very one who is the goal to become the means. In the same way that one would make milk, which is a pleasurable end in itself, into a medicine, which is the means to cure disease. Right. Okay, so let's understand this. The 67th footnote here says, Manavala Mahmudi's phrase, Cheyal Machiyale, is ambiguous and could be taken to mean by the greatness of his action as well as by ceasing of his action. Right? That's interesting because, the greatness of one's action would indicate a path of effort, of actually doing some great action, so this would be more the faith and works scenario that the Northern School, the Wadagalais, emphasize. Whereas, taken in another way, it could mean the ceasing of his action. Here she's correctly understood it to mean the ceasing of action or the ceasing of effort, right? Or a giving up of self-effort, effort for oneself, right? The former, however, would be antithetical to Manavala Mahamuni's views expressed elsewhere, right? So that's true, right? So the greatness, it wouldn't mean that. So that's why in the translation here she's given that other meaning. Or something by the greatness of his action could be meant sarcastically. Okay, so I'm not sure whether we can consider that this statement is sarcasm. I don't think it is, right? But in any case, the meaning is by ceasing his action and not by the greatness of his action. Okay, so then as we go on, we get the analogy of using milk, which is something pleasurable, which is a goal in itself, right, as a means to cure a disease, right? So sometimes people, by taking too many milk products, they get sick, and then they take another form of milk like yogurt, right, cultured milk, and they cure that disease by taking the yogurt, right? So they're curing milk with milk, right? Okay, so if we really want to go fully into this analogy of milk and medicine, then milk as a goal and milk as a means, right? We have to look further at text 189. So we'll get there. So when we get to text 189, it'll be further explained. But I just explained a little bit. That's possible to get it's possible to have some bodily affliction by eating too many milk products or eating too much milk, and then you can cure that same thing by using a different form of milk, like the yogurt. So anyway, we'll get to that. Okay, so he states that this phrase declares a superior characteristic of this upaya. So he's saying that this upaya, the upaya of taking shelter at the Lord's feet, right, the means of liberation, sharanagati or property, is superior because of this. Because the Chaitana, the living being, gives up his path of self-effort, and therefore the Lord automatically becomes the upaya. There's nothing that the individual does, per se, to attain liberation, right? It's simply by giving up his efforts, his self-efforts, that automatically the Lord becomes the means of his liberation. Okay, so let's see what P.B. Anangachari says about Sutra 152. Sutra 152, again, the meaning is, since the Chaitanya, the living being, who has to take these as the goal, the upaya, right? Right? What were they again? Sriman Narayana Charno, the Mahalakshmi being always with the Lord, the Lord's divine qualities and the Lord's divine form, right? Right? As the goal, has nothing to do. He has nothing to do. There's nothing to do. In other words, he has to give up doing what he thinks he has to do to attain liberation. He has to give that up. He has to give up the paths of self-effort in order to actually achieve things. If you relax, again, the example of the drowning man. The drowning man has nothing to do. He can't help himself. He can't. The person is going to come and save him. The lifeguard is going to come. The lifeguard is going to save him. What he has to do is just simply go limp and give up his panic, and the lifeguard will save him, like that. So he has to take these as the means, right? So if these are the goal, right? Again, Sriman Narayana and Charano, right? The Lord with Lakshmi, the Lord's divine qualities, and the divine figure of the Lord, divine form of the Lord, right? If these are the goal, then why are they the means as well? If these are the goal, then why are they the means as well? The Chaitanya, the living being, who is without anything, who is a kinchana, right? So we talked about a kinchana, meaning hopeless and helpless, right? Who has no other resort, ananya gati, right? Ananya means another, and gati means, again, something to get him to the goal, right? Any other resort, who has no other resort, due to his inability to do anything to attain the goal, and that is the consciousness that one has to get. One has to understand the consciousness. There is nothing I can do or not do to attain the goal. There's nothing I can do or not do to attain the goal. I cannot do it or I cannot not do it, right? There is nothing I can do, either do or not do. There's no effort I can make that will attain the goal of liberation, of eternal service to the Lord. There's nothing. He himself, I have to give up that idea of self-effort, of trying to save myself like the drowning man. I have to go limp, and I have to allow the Lord to come and to save me, like the transcendental lifeguard that he is. He's going to save me. So it makes the goal itself the means. Simply by giving up his self-efforts, the drowning man is then saved by the lifeguard. This is like making milk, which is for pleasure, to be a medicine also, right? So sometimes we take milk and we enjoy taking milk, and other times we use milk to cure some bodily difficulty. Okay, so let's go back again to the main text. So he states in this that this phrase declares the superior characteristic of the upaya. What's the phrase? The phrase is now taken. So we have Sriman Narayana Charano, and we talked about those together. Now we're taking Charano and Sharanam together as a phrase, right? So the phrase Charano Sharanam, taking shelter of the 2 feet, that's what it means, declares the upaya or the means to be different from any other upaya, from any other means, right? It's very clear. This is a clear means. Take shelter of the 2 feet. If somebody tells you to take shelter of the 2 feet, obviously of Sriman Narayana, but to take shelter of the 2 feet, right? It's a very clear statement of what the means are. So, since the phrase Charano Sharanam declares the same entity, which is the goal to be the means, the same entity which is the goal to be the means, right? Right? It shows that this upaya is different from other upayas, from other means, where the object to be attained is one thing, and the means of attaining it is another. Karma yoga, right? Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. These are means. These are means to attain something. But the thing attained is not the same as the means. Whereas here, property Sharanagati, right, is a means, taking shelter of the 2 feet, taking shelter of Mahalakshmi, of the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Lord's auspicious qualities and the Supreme Lord's divine form. These are not only the means, but these are also the goals as well. That shows the superiority of them, because they're not only the means, they're also the goal. They're not only the goal, they're also the means. Whereas the other paths of self-effort, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, any other means, right, is not the goal. So we practice it, but we have to become perfect at it. And then when we become perfect at it, then we attain something else. Liberation. The liberation for those persons who get liberated from paths of self-effort is still the same as the liberation for the propaners. It's always liberation is serving the divine feet of the Supreme Lord in Sri Vaikuntha eternally. But the difference is that the propaners do the same thing here as the same thing there. And what is that they do? Right? The Lord themselves is the means. The Lord himself is the means. They don't do actually anything here. The Lord himself is the means. The Lord himself is the goal. Still, we serve the Lord here, we serve the Lord there. So, since the phrase Charano Sharanam declares the same entity, which is the goal, to be the means, it shows that this upaya is different from other upayas, where the object to be attained is one thing and the means of attaining it is another. Now he will reveal the meaning of the word prapadye. Right. So let's look and see what Pivyanangacharya says about 53, text 153, which is going to tell us about the phrase Charano Sharanam. So, since the divine feet, which are the goal, is also shown as the means, it is said that it is different from those things in which the means and the goal are different. Right. As the things which is the goal is also shown as to be the same as the means, it is said that this means is different from other means where the way and the goal are different. Very, very simple. Very, very simple understanding. This is exactly what we said before. Going back to the main text. Okay, so now he reveals the meaning of the verb prapadye. Prapadye. Right, so prapadye is a verb. It means I resort to. Right, so here we have text 153. 153. Prapadye means I resort to. Since the word is derived from the verbal root pad, meaning to go, since it is in the first person, right? First person means a single person. I resort to. I take shelter of. I resort to. Right. I resort to the shelter of the 2 feet of Sriman Narayana. He gives the meaning as I resort to. Since this could mean any or all of the 3 methods of acting, right? How do we resort? Do we verbally resort, mentally resort, or physically resort? By which of these agents does it say this resorting has come about? To this he says, text 155, even if one resorts to him verbally or physically, there is no loss of the final attainment. But since moksha is from knowledge, right? There's a statement in the Vedas, jnanat mokshaha. From knowledge, jnanat means is ablative case of jnana or knowledge. From knowledge, it means jnanat means from knowledge, moksha. From knowledge comes moksha, right? It should be mental, right? Okay. So we have these 3 ways to resort to the Lord. We can resort by words. We can offer many, many prayers. We can chant mantras. We can chant so many mantras so many times a day, whatever it is like that. That's verbal. Verbal resorting to the Lord, chanting prayers and whatever, Vishnu Sahasranama, chanting Hare Krishna, whatever it is, many, many times. We can do that. Verbal. That's a verbal way of resorting to the Lord. Physical. We can do karma yoga, right? We can do karma yoga. we can work and we can offer the results to the Lord, whatever it is like that. We can physically do some service by physically worshiping the deity of all the different forms of bhakti, right? Shravanam Kirtanam, Vishwasmaranam Parasevanam, Akshanabandhanam Dasam Sakram Atmanivedam, all these different Navada Bhakti things we can do. We can do all these things physically, right? Mentally, we can surrender to the Lord. We can have that mentality of surrendering to the Lord. So, if you do it verbally, you'll be liberated. If you surrender verbally, if you surrender physically, offer your obeisances. What does Krishna say? He says, "Man mana bhava man bhakto majjadi mam namaskuru." Think of me, bow down before me. So all of these things work, right? All of these ways of surrender. There's no loss of the final attainment. You will attain. But since moksha is from knowledge, we know that, then jnanat moksha, it should be mental. Surrender should be mental. There should be a mental resignation. So this idea of sarvarama pritita, it should be a mental resignation. It doesn't have to be physical or verbal. It can simply be mental. Even Lord Rama says, if you just say something, he's talking about verbal, right? Tavasmi, I am yours. Tavasmiti chiyachite, right? Sakrideva prapannaya. Just once if you say this, Lord Rama says. But the point is, here he's saying, if it's mental, that's the point. It has to be mental. It has to be mental, like that. Whether it's physical or verbal or not, you can pray and you can chant and you can do whatever you want. You can work for Krishna. You can work for Vishnu, Sriman Narayana. But the idea is that moksha should be a mental surrender to the Supreme Lord. Okay? One may resort to him with a single utterance, requesting protection, such as, "Be my refuge." And this is a quote to Vishnu Purana 3, 733. Or one may resort to him by a single act of approaching a savior, as did the hunter, right? And the crow, with hands folded in Anjali gesture, which provokes the Lord's grace, right? So this quotation is from the Ramayana. Nishada means a hunter or possibly a demon. In the Ramayana, the hunter Guha did not actively approach the Lord seeking refuge, but the Rakshasa Vibhishana and the crow Kakashura did. It is not clear who is being referred to here. I would suggest it's probably Vibhishana and the crow, right? So so what is it? Indeed, it is said an Anjali is the best mudra. So mudras are hand gestures, and they represent certain things. Like, for instance, if I put my hand up like this, it means stop. In normal terms, if I'm standing in the road and I go like that, somebody will stop, right? They're driving their car or whatever it is. So there's different, different hand mudras that show different things. So this Anjali mudra, placing the two hands together in front of the chest or sometimes over the head, different places, right? It shows surrender. It's a gesture which shows surrender and tries to invoke the grace of the Lord, of the Lord's compassion. So and this is attributed to the Garuda Purana. In Garuda Purana, it says this. So indeed, it is said an Anjali is the best mudra as it quickly pacifies the Lord, right? Which is what it says in, like I said, in Garuda Purana. Even so, the attainment of the result will not fail. So whether it's verbal, physical, or mental, right? Surrender will not fail. Indeed, it is said, Anjali is the best mudra because it quickly pacifies the Lord. Even so, the attainment of the result will not fail. However, since it is declared that moksha comes from knowledge, right? Jnanat mokshaha, which actually comes from Mahabharata 12, 306, 84. And the quote exactly is, for men, moksha comes from knowledge, O king. This is not said merely out of ignorance. So knowledge must be investigated rigorously, and thereby one must gain release from birth and death. However, since it is declared that moksha comes from knowledge, resorting should come about mentally. Surrender should come about mentally. It should be a mental thing, right? This resorting to the Lord is a special form of understanding. Buddhi Vishesha. Buddhi means intelligence, and Vishesha means special. So it's a special type of intelligence, which Pillai Lokacharya has described elaborately in his book Parantapati. In his Shriya Patipati, again, we've got these two books that we're quoting of Pillai Lokacharya. He has said, this special form of understanding, Buddhi Vishesha, is a particular way of thinking. One, it results from recognizing that one is the Shesha, or the servant or property of no one else but the Supreme Lord. Two, is distinct from other rupayas, right? This mental saranagati or property of surrender is distinct from other means, right? Three, consists of accepting the Lord as one's protector, right? Four, is to be done once and for all. It's a once only done, and both schools of Sri Vaishnavas accept that it's only done once. It's done once and then it's finished, right? Then five, has neither vacillation nor delay, right? So we can't say that it delays liberation only as much as we continue to live our life, but at the end of life, it doesn't delay. We immediately go to Sri Vaikuntham. Six, everyone is qualified for it. Everyone is qualified for it. There's no disqualification by caste or gender or age or race or whatever. There's no, or even species, because we have elephants, we have, Gajendra got moksha, so there's no disqualification, right, for it. Everyone's qualified for it, and has no rigid rules regarding the performance of it. There's no hard and fast rules for how we are to do it, right? Does not require one's last thoughts at the moment of death to be on the Lord, right? And the subtext here is footnote 73 says, Bhakti Yoga is understood in Sri Vaishnavism to demand that the final step is Antima Shmriti. So if you perform Bhakti Yoga, you do have to remember the Lord at the time of God, at the time of death. That is the whole point of doing Bhakti Yoga, of doing all these other paths of effort, is to bring you to the point of death to remember the Supreme Lord at the time of death. And he says, yam yam vapi smaram bhavan, whatever you think of at the time of death, that you will attain. If you think of me, you'll come to me. If you think of the Pitris, you'll go to the Pitris. If you think of the demigods, you'll go to the demigods, whatever. If you think. So, as described in the Bhagavad Gita 8, 9, and 10, chapter 8, 9, and 10, verses 9 and 10, this makes for uncertainty for the Bhakti Yogin, right? It all depends upon that moment of death, that deathbed remembrance. Since omission of it can mean that one must take another birth in another body to complete Bhakti Yoga. Property is considered safer and therefore superior because it is a one-time event which does not demand any particular meditation at the time of death. And this is confirmed by the Vraha Charma Sloka, where Lord Vraha says, even if you're lying in a coma or unconscious or unable to think of me, aham smarami mad bhakta, right? I will remember you at the time of death. If you remembered me in your lifetime, somehow or other, if you don't remember me at the time of death, don't worry, I will remember you. And this is even accepted, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. There's a statement in the Vishnu Sahasranam commentary of Baladeva Vibhushana, which similarly says the same thing. So this is accepted by all sorts of Vaishnavas, not by Sri Vaishnavas only. So there it is. But it was one of the 6 doubts that Ramanuja had when he went to Kanchipurna and asked him to ask Varadaraj Perumal, the deity in Kanchipuram, these 6 questions. One of the questions was, do I have to remember you at the time of death? The answer was, no, you do not have to remember the time of death. And the Vraha Charma Sloka confirms that. So here we are, right? And number 9 is very easy to do. It's very easy to do. Once you explain property to people, it's very easy for them to think of that and to at least momentarily turn towards the Lord and surrender, right? And number 10 contains a request. We do have to actually request for help. Like the person who is drowning, if he doesn't say he's drowning, the lifeguard will not jump in and save him. So he has to yell out, save me, he has to let the lifeguard know that he is in need of saving. But after that, he doesn't have to do anything. This is very easy to do. Number 10 contains a request, and number 11 consists of firm faith. It has to be full of faith. So one has to have Mahavishvasa, which is described in the Lakshmi Tantra, the 5 aspects or angas of property, right, or Saranagati are described. Mahavishvasa is one of them. One has to have firm faith that the Lord will save him. Thus, the ideas he revealed there should be contemplated in this context too. Does thought alone suffice? That then the question comes, okay, does thought alone suffice? Does this mental surrender, is that enough? Is that enough? Let's see what Vibhyanangacharya says about text 155. Text 155. First of all, 154 and 155 together. The translations are prapadye means I am attaching myself to or taking refuge in, right? And 155, it may be sufficient to pray with words or by folding one's hands, by chanting mantras or saying prayers, or by just doing Anjali mudra, prayer mudra. However, since the Shastras say that liberation is attained through knowledge, the attachment is taken to be done through the mind, right? Prapadya means to attach myself to resort to. If one were to pray for protection with the mere words alone, or the folding of the hands, or other forms of worship like prostrating or doing all these other paths of all these other efforts, right? Sadhanas, that itself might bear fruit. That might bear fruit. That will bear fruit. Nobody's saying that those things are wrong or those things do not bear the fruit of liberation. Nobody's saying that. However, as the Shastras say that moksha is obtained through knowledge, jnanat mokshaha, tattva, he says here, tattva jnanat muktihi, right? Here, the attachment is done through the mind. The essential bent of mind that accepts his protection is the knowledge which is spoken of. We have to accept the Lord's protection. We're drowning. We have to accept the lifeguard's protection. We just have to accept it. We just have to let it happen. It'll happen. Just let it happen. Just give up struggling and let it happen. Right. So going back to the main text. Text 156. So the question here again was, is it the mental surrender, surrendering in the mind without doing anything, without saying anything, without doing anything, physical or verbal, right? Is that enough? Is that sufficient, right? Or is it necessary to accept the Lord by all 3 agents, verbal, physical, and mental, as in such statements as by mind, body, and speech, right? So this is a quotation from Tirabai Moli 6.5.11. So 6.5.11 Tirabai Moli by Namal Wat says this by mind, body, and speech. All 3 can be used. So we have no objection to all 3 being used. But the question here is, do you have to use the body and the speech, or is the mind enough? Surrender in the mind, is that enough? Since he is the upaya, or the means, and these are not the direct upaya, means, there is no restriction saying that all 3 are required. So there's no restriction saying that we need to do all these 3 things, right? Right? Because the Lord himself is the means. These things are not even the means. Resorting to him is not even the means of liberation, right? The upaya, or the means, for accomplishing the result is the Lord to whom one resorts. The resorting, which takes place by the 3 agents, is not the direct upaya, right? It's a preliminary upaya. We go to the acharya and we take panchasamskara, we do samashrayanam, and we surrender to the Lord through the agency of the acharya. The acharya helps us to do that. And this is a so property or sharanagati is preliminary. It's a preliminary means. right? But it's not the actual means. The actual means of liberation is the Lord himself. The resorting, which takes place by these three agents, verbal, physical, mental, right, is not the direct upaya. It's not shakshat upaya. The shakshat upaya, the direct upaya. At the outset, it may appear to be upaya. It may appear to people, when we tell people about property, they think, oh, property is the way. We have to do property. We have to go to the guru. We have to go through some shrine and bunch of something. That is the way. That is liberation. That's the method. And we have to do that, right? But then that notion disappears when we understand more about the process of property and the Lord himself being the actual upaya, the shakshat upaya, the direct upaya. Therefore, only one acceptance consisting of faith that the result will be accomplished is sufficient, right? There is no restriction that all three are needed. There is an alternative interpretation. Why is it that he states in this way, restricting it only to one of the three agents? Isn't it possible that resorting by all three agents is prescribed? In reply, this states that one alone is sufficient. There is no rule stating that all three are needed. Since there is no restriction, it is obvious that there is no fault if acceptance comes about by all three, right? So we're not against working for serving the Lord physically or offering verbal praise or chanting of mantras or whatever or folding your hands. We're not against any of those things, right? But simple mental submission to the Lord is enough. In his Parantapati, he has revealed whether seeking refuge takes place by three agents or one, there is no lack of attainment of the result. The three agents are needed to fulfill the Chaitana's own qualification for taking refuge. Adhikari Purti, right? But for attainment of the result, one agent alone is sufficient. That is mental surrender, right? In the same way, for the fulfillment of the upaya, the Lord's status as the husband of Shri, right? For the fulfillment of being the means, the Lord's status as being the husband of Shri, his attributes of affection, etc., his possession of a holy divine holy body are expected. Similarly, for the fulfillment of the Chaitana's qualification, the three agents are necessary. Right. So this is from Parantapati 166. So if we look at here, this idea of Adhikari Purti, let me explain that. So it says here, the Tengalai Acharyas dispute the Wadagalai position that property, so the Southern School Acharyas, the Sri Rangam Acharyas, dispute the Kanchipuram Acharyas, meaning Vedanta Deshika, so Pilalok Acharya and Manavala Muni, dispute what Vedanta Deshika and the Wadagalai Acharyas say, that property is a sadhana. Property is not a sadhana, for which specific angas or accessories are stipulated, right? And we have this statement again, the definition of property or sharanagati coming from Lakshmi Tantra and the Pancharatra Agama. Anukulyasya sankalpa, pradikulyasya vajana, karpanya, mahavishvasya, goptritva varnam, etc. Along with what the Wadagalais say is paranyasam, or giving over the burden of sins and merits to the Lord. Property and property itself. So these are the things which the Northern School, the Vedanta Deshika and the Wadagalais say are all necessary parts of property, and therefore property is a sadhana which has these different angas or these different parts. Whereas we agree that we agree with all these things, but these things are not. The Southern Acharyas agree, the Tengalai Acharyas, the Sri Rangam Acharyas agree, in Anukulyasya Sankalpa and the rest of it. We accept that, but those things grow out of property, after property, and they come about as the soul surrenders to the Lord, after the soul surrenders to the Lord, those things will naturally occur. They will come about. But they are not prerequisites. They are in no way qualifications or prerequisites for property. Property has no prerequisites or no qualifications. The Tengalais assert that property itself is a simple, easy, one-time mental affirmation. This claim, however, is balanced by the tendency to emphasize the difficulty in qualifying for property, becoming an adhikari. Okay, so Pilalokacharya here is talking about becoming qualified to be a prapana rather than qualifying for liberation by actually performing property. It's a very slight difference like that. But at the same time, there are no qualifications. There are no qualifications for property, right? And it shouldn't be. Basically, Vedanta Deshika and the Northern Acharyas, they're saying that you're doing something. You're not doing something. The person who is drowning is not doing something. He is simply going limp. He is simply allowing himself to be saved. He needs to request only that he be saved. But that request is not some great sadhana. Cannot be considered to be something that saves him. Right? It is the lifeguard that saves him, right? And he has to give up all his self-efforts and let the Supreme Lord save him, right? Such statements as the following proclaim that property is done once and for all. And so here's the statement. This property or sharanagati or surrender, the essence of the scriptures, the essence of the Shastras, done once and for all, transports one across the sea of samsara of repeated birth and death. And this quotation comes from the Lakshmi Tantra, 1792, right? So in the very same scripture that gives us all of these other angas or limbs of property, right? Which the southern, which Vedanta Deshika and the northern Vadagalaya Acharyas say are all, this all turns into some big sadhana like that. That very same scripture later on says, in the same context of surrender, says it is done once and for all. It is done once and for all. It's done once. I mean, we only have to look at the Ramacharma Sloka. He says, Sakrideva Papannaya. And both the southern school and the northern school of Sri Vaishnavas accept this Ramacharma Sloka that Lord Rama says, just have this mentality, say, I am yours, once only, Sakrit Eva, only once. It says only once. So it is not an ongoing thing. It is not an ongoing sadhana. It is not that you have to be surrendered. You have to surrender now and you have to remain surrendered for the rest of your life. And at the time of death, you have to think of God. No. There is no qualification of doing sadhana going on and on and on and on like this. It is simply surrender. Give up struggling and be accepted by the Lord, and as to accept the Lord as the one who is going to save you. Accept the lifeguard who is going to save you from drowning. That's it. Okay, so to one who has done property once and for all, and who pleads, I am yours. To him I give protection from all creatures. This is my vow. And there it is. Right there in the commentary by Manavala Mahamuni, he mentions the Ramacharma Sloka, just as I said. So this is coming from the Ramayana, 6.12.20. 6.12.20 is the sloka in the Ramayana, Valmiki Ramayana, of the Ramacharma Sloka. Very, very important to know this and to meditate upon the meaning of this, because this is the essence of property. Sakrideva prapannaya tavasmiki chayajte abhayam sarvabhutebhyo vidamye tat pratam mama. Lord Rama says that to one who has done property or surrenders once and for all, and who pleads, I am yours, to him I give protection from all creatures. It can also mean I give protection to all creatures, not only from all creatures, but to all creatures I give protection, because the word sarvapapebhyo can be either dative or ablative, right? This is my vow. This is the Lord's promise. Right? So why is this stated in the present tense is the next question. So let's first of all see what P.B. Anangacharya has to say about 156. So, Truna 156, because he is the means for the goal, while the refuge seeked through the mind, word, and body are not truly the means, the attachments performed, right, by the mind, the manasika, by words, vachika, and by body, kayika, are not necessary, right? They're not necessary. All those things are not necessary. Is attachment through the mind alone sufficient? Was the question. Is it not required to seek him through mind, word, and body? Right, as stated by Namalwa in the Tiruvai 6511. No, it is not required, because the Lord, who is seeked as the goal, is also the means to reach him. While the mind, body, and the mind, word, and body might appear on the surface as the means, they truly are not. For the goal to be reached, the necessary assent to his protection is sufficient. We have to assent to his protection. We have to accept him as our protector, and that's all. That's all we have to do. So going back to the main text, the question again was, the present tense is for the purpose of meditation, right? So why is this in the present tense? So what we talked about in the previous sutra here, right? So it says, he is the upaya. Since he is the upaya, and these are not the direct upaya, right? There is no restriction saying that all three are required. And then we got some explanation of that. The present tense is for present tense. Okay, so we're talking about, what are we talking about again? We're talking about the verb or the word prapadye. The word prapadye is in the present tense. So here he's asking, why is it said the present tense? The present tense is for the purpose of meditation, right? If I say, I will do, when we do a sankalpa, right? When we do a sankalpa, we say karishe. Karishe means I will do it, right? I will do it, right? That's future tense. Or we can say, I did do it, right? In Satvika Tyaga, we say karitavan. It was done. It was done. That's past tense. Here, Sriman Narayana Charano, prapadya is present tense. So why is it stated in present tense? Right? We're talking about prapadya here. Resorting to, I resort to, I take shelter of, right? Why is it in present tense? So the present tense is for the purpose of meditation. When sattva guna, or the mode of goodness, arises, and the chaitana, the living being, then becomes afraid. I have taken refuge with your feet that encompass the world, O Lord. And this is a quote coming from, attributed to the Vihagendra Samhita in the 22nd Patalam. Patalam also means like a chapter, right? So I have taken refuge with your feet that encompass the world, O Lord, right? I have attained union with your feet. That's coming from period Tirumoli 581, again by Tirumangayalwa, period Tirumol, right? I came and sank beneath your feet. I came and sank beneath your feet. This is coming from Tiruvai Moli by Namawa 6.10.10. This verse 6.10.10 of Tiruvai Moli is quoted quite a lot. Unlike the other passages, this prapadye I resort to is stated in the present tense. The reason is that one who is still attached to the material world, when disturbed by the gunas, the different gunas of rajas and tamas, of passion and ignorance, the qualities in this material world of passion and ignorance, right, may happen to do some upaya or some misdeed. He may do something good. He may do some part. He may engage in a path of self-effort, or he may also commit a sin, right? Afterwards, when sattva comes to the fore, right? So when the sattva, the rajas and the tamas, the passion, the ignorance subside a bit, and sattva comes out, goodness comes to the fore, he will repent and become afraid, right? If he's done something wrong, made a mistake. There is no atonement for this except property. As it is said, the atonement, prayaschita, atonement means to do something when you know that you've done something wrong, right? What are we doing wrong in this material world? We are gaining merit and committing sin. Both of these things are wrong, right? We have to do prayaschita because of doing those things. What is the prayaschita? The prayaschita is to perform property, is to do sharanagati, is to surrender to the Supreme Lord. That's the only atonement. The atonement prayaschita is to take refuge again, then and there. And this is a quote from 83. So it says here, okay, again, this is interesting because we have this idea of doing property only once. And here, however, we have this idea of doing something, taking refuge again, doing it again, doing property twice. So what do the Acharyas say about this? There's a difference between what Vedanta Deshika and the Northern Country Forum Acharyas say and what the Sri Rangam, Tengalaya Acharyas like Pila Lokacharya and Manavala Muni, what they say about taking refuge again. So the Lakshmi Tantra 1793, Vedanta Deshika and the Wadagalai school, the northern school, depend much more heavily on this verse than on the one immediately preceding, right? The one immediately preceding we mentioned before, where it says that it should be done once only. So in Lakshmi Tantra, you've got these two verses side by side. The first one says property should be done once only. The next one says for atonement, you can do it again, right? So Vedanta Deshika and the Wadagalai school depend more heavily on the next verse than the one immediately preceding it, which claims that property is done once and for all, the first one, right? 1792. 1793, thus they affirm that property has to be repeated whenever the prapana happens to commit any future deliberate sin. Okay, so admittedly, they say if you accidentally do a sin, it's not necessary, but if you deliberately do a sin, right, after doing property, then again, you have to do property again. Though property need be done only once to assure moksha, Vedanta Deshika says that unless one atones for subsequent sin with another property as a prayaschita, what Tirunarayana tells us is prayaschita property, right? One's final attainment could be delayed in order to experience the punishment for that sin. So this is a quote from Rahasya Traya Saram by Vedanta Deshika, chapter 18, right? Pages 518, and chapter 25, pages 782 to 783. So he says it twice in his magnum opus, his greatest book on esoteric subjects, Vedanta Deshika, in Rahasya Traya Saram, right? The essence, the saram of the three secrets, Rahasya Traya Saram by Vedanta Deshika, he says that although property is once and once only, if you deliberately perform some sin afterwards, you have to atone for that by doing another property, or you may, but it's not certain, you may have a delayed liberation until you can suffer or enjoy the merits or demerits of the sin or the punya and the papa that you've done specifically after property. Okay. So this is a this is the northern school acharyas say this. Unlike the passages, okay, so we got up to here. So the atonement prayaschita is to take refuge again and then again. Right, this is what the northern acharyas say. But after property is done once and for all, doing it again is not proper. Therefore, stating it in the present tense, the word prapadye, allows one to think about one's previous performance of property and be relieved. So when we chant the Dvaya mantra, Sriman Narayana Charano Sharanam Prapadye is present tense. So every time we chant Dvaya mantra, we're meditating upon what? We're not surrendering at that time. We're not doing Sharanagati at that time. When we chant Dvaya mantra, when I say I resort to the 2 feet, I resort for shelter to the 2 feet of Sriman Narayana. That's present tense. When we chant that, are we then resorting at that time? No, we're not. We're simply remembering that time that we did resort to his feet. And that remembrance of the property that we did before is enough to get rid of to do prayaschita. So if prayaschita is accepted, if somebody says you have to do prayaschita, you have to do property all over again. No, the Southern acharyas say no. You're not doing property again because property is done. You're simply remembering that property. Just remembrance of the property. is not property. It's just remembering that you did property. That's enough. That's enough prayaschitta. That's the amount of prayaschitta that you have to do according to the Southern Acharyas, the Sri Rangam Acharyas, Pililokacharya and Manavala Mamun. Whereas Vedanta Deshika says you actually have to do it again. You have to do property again. Sure, it has to be done again. Every single time you're saying Sriman Narayana Charano Sharam Papadye, you're saying, I'm surrendering. I surrender unto your feet. But the meaning for the northern school is, yes, I'm surrendering. The meaning for the southern school is, I'm remembering that one time when I surrendered. The actual surrender is not done again. It's only a remembrance. Yes, I'm a servant of the Lord. I'm property of the Lord. I'm completely supported and controlled and by him. And he is the upaya. He is the means. That's all I'm doing, is I'm just remembering that. It's for meditational purposes. And that is enough prayaschitta. That's enough prayaschitta for any sin, for any merit or demerit, any punya or papa that comes afterwards. He reveals that there are several other uses for this present tense. So that was the first understanding of the present tense, right? For meditational purposes. Right? So let us go and see 157 by Divyanangacharya. So again, Sutra 157 says the reason for using the present tense is saying I'm attaching myself, prapadye, to keep it in mind when fear comes after higher qualities of sattva guna arise in it. Right? So when we're in the lower modes of rajas and tamas, right, we might do things, we might do things, punyas and papas, we might do sins and merits like that, even after property, after doing sharanagati, like that. But as sattva guna, as we get more sattvic in our nature, like that, we'll realize, right, that then we'll fear, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have, either good or bad, I shouldn't have done that because that's a karma like that. But simply the remembrance, the meditation on the sharanagati is what is the prayaschitta for that. Why is the present tense used here as opposed to using the past tense? Right? And he gives some quotations for when the past tense is used. In the Chaitana, the living being living in this world, will have rajas and tamas, ruins of passion and ignorance initially. And due to that, he will seek the wrong paths and the wrong goals. Later, when the sattva gunas, when goodness arises within him, he will then become afraid of his prior wrongful acts, right? As Arjuna was in the Bhagavad Gita, he was afraid of that, right? But because the only countermeasure for those acts is surrendering to him, and that can be done only once. Therefore, the present tense is used here to keep remembering the act of seeking his refuge, the remembrance of that once only property. So going back to the main text. So here's another reason why the present tense is used. This reflecting is done so that the mind will not follow after other upayas. So meditation, we meditate on the Lord as the only upaya, as the only means, so that we will not ever again think that there's another means. So that our mind will be fixed. Why do you do meditation? It's to fix the mind, right? So using the present tense is for meditational purposes, and therefore to fix the mind so that we don't also think, right? The next reason is so that we don't also think of any other upayas, any other means. To occupy one's time, that's another reason, right? Right? Just to occupy till the end of life, we can meditate upon being saved by the Lord, right? And because it is impossible to give up due to its sweetness, meditating upon that. Because what? We are meditating upon the Lord with Mahalakshmi and his divine qualities and his divine form. That's what we're meditating upon. And that's a meditation. And that we cannot be given up because we enjoy that. That's because it's full of sweetness. It is it is appropriate to go on thinking of one's earlier property incessantly for the following reasons. Number one, so that the mind will not involve itself in other upayas or other means that as a result of previous tendencies. Number two, in order to occupy one's time, right, in this life, right, till final, moksha, final beatitude, liberation. And number three, because it is so irresistibly delightful to meditate upon these things, upon the Lord, his lotus feet, his divine, his Divya Mangala Vigraha, his Tirumani, his Tiruvadi, his association with Mahalakshmi, like that, and our surrender unto him. On the other hand, if one asks whether it is necessary to meditate on this many times as a result, he replies, and we'll see the answer to that in a moment after we see what P.B. Anangacharya says about 158. So P.B. Anangacharya, about that, he says, remembering or repetition of this mantra will happen without breaking for the following reasons. One, it will prevent the mind from seeking other means. Two, having this, there's no need for another thing to spend time with, right? And three, it cannot be let go because of its great sweetness. We can remember also that Ramanuja, at the time of his death, he gave different instructions to his devotees. And one of them was constantly chant and meditate on the meaning of Dvaya mantra. Constantly chant and meditate on the meaning of Dvaya mantra. And this is the reason. The recitation of this mantra will prevent one from seeking other means, right? Which might happen due to prior bad habits. Its recitation will occupy all the time, such as there will not be any time left to do other things. And its sweetness, the remembering or repetition of this mantra will happen without break for the following reasons. It will prevent the mind from seeking other means. Having this, there is no need for another thing to spend time with. And three, it cannot be let go because of its sweetness. The recitation of this mantra will prevent one from seeking other means, which might happen due to prior bad habits. Secondly, its recitation will occupy all the time, such as there will be not any other time for any other thing. The sweetness of it is so great that its recitation will happen without stop, without end, right? And for all these reasons also, the present tense is used saying prapadya. For all those reasons. These are all other reasons. He doesn't need to go into them very deeply, but those are the reasons right there. And text, now, on the other hand, if one asks whether it's necessary to meditate on this many times to attain the result, he replies, if one thinks that many repetitions are necessary for attainment, this upaya slips away. Okay, this is a good one to quote to people. If you think that by many repetitions, what do we hear? We hear you have to repeat this, you have to chant Vishnu Sahasranam so many times, you have to chant Hare Krishna many times, you have to do if one thinks by many repetitions are necessary for attainment, this upaya slips away. If one concludes that it is necessary to meditate on this many times in order to obtain the result, rather than for the previously mentioned purposes, the siddhopaya, right? The perfected means, the Lord himself, right? Who does not tolerate association of other aids, right? Of other means, will slip away automatically, like the Brahmastra in conjunction with a jute cord. Okay, so this idea is, okay, so Sri Vaishnava theologians here in the 84th footnote often use the Brahmastra analogy from the ancient, from the incident attributed to the Ramayana to show how property cannot tolerate association with other upayas. The powerful Brahmastra weapon demanded that one have faith in its efficacy. At one point, the Rakshasas had Hanuman helplessly bound with the Brahmastra. So that they had a mantra weapon and they bound up Hanuman. They captured Hanuman when he went to Lanka, and they tied him up. But doubting its efficacy, they attempted to further secure him with a jute cord. So they thought, wow, he's such an enemy. He may get, we've got him bound up with this mantra weapon, and he's bound up. but maybe we should also add a cord, like somebody who wants their pants to stay up and they've got a belt on, right? The belt is holding their pants up, but they put suspenders on as well. What happens if the belt fails, right? This is what the Rakshasas were thinking. What happens if the Brahmastra fails, right? Then we tie him up with a rope, tie Hanuman up with a rope as well. Therefore, they didn't have full faith. They didn't have full faith in the Brahmastra. Because they didn't have full faith in the Brahmastra, it failed. Because its efficacy is based on full faith. So the same thing with Sharanagati, you have to have faith in it. If you don't have faith in it, then it's not going to be efficacious, right? That's what he's saying. So repetition many times may indicate that one has no faith, that once only it can be done. At that point, the Brahmastra slipped off and Hanuman escaped. The incident is not found in this form in any of the current recensions of Valmiki Ramayana. For a more elaborate discussion, we have to see Jnanasara 28 of Jnanasara Prameyasara of Arulala Perumal Embiramannar with Manavala Mahamuni's commentary, and the edition to look at is the edition of Vidvan Venkatacharya and Tiruvenkatacharya of Kanchi, published in 1916 by the Sri Vaishnava Mudrapaka Sabha. Okay, so that's just an interesting thing there. So if one thinks that many repetitions are necessary for attainment, the upaya or the means slips away. If one concludes that it is necessary to meditate on this many times in order to attain the result, rather than for the previously mentioned purposes, right? The Siddhopaya, who does not tolerate the perfect means, right, which does not tolerate the association with other aids, with other means, right, will slip away automatically like the Brahmastra in conjunction with the jute cord, right? Thus, he has stated the meaning of the first sentence. After this, he begins to present the meaning of the last sentence of the Dwaya. So thus we have understood the meaning of Sriman Narayana Charano Sharanam Prapadye. Now, next we will take up the meaning of the last sentence of the Dwaya, Srimate Narayanaya Namaha. But before we do, we will look at what B.B. Anangacharya says about Sutra number 59, which is the last one of the first half of Dwaya. So, again, the meaning of Sutra number 159 is, if it is thought that to achieve the goal, that this mantra has to be repeated for a very long time, then this means will not work. You want me to repeat that? It's very, very important here. If it is thought that to achieve the goal, what is the goal? The goal is liberation. The goal is eternal service to the Supreme Lord in Sri Vaikuntha, to surrender to the Lord associated with Lakshmi, to serve the Lord, Mahalakshmi, and the Lord's form in Sri Vaikuntha and all his divine qualities, right? That is the goal. If that is the goal, and if you think that you can't attain that goal except by repeating the Dwaya mantra, this mantra, any other mantra, whatever it is, by repeating it, repeatedly repeating it for a very long time, if you think that, it will not work. Therefore, this mantra should be repeated for the above said reasons only, and not for the reason that we have to chant it many, 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 many times to get the result. The result is assured already because of our full faith in the Lord himself as being the means. The result is achieved already. The meditation is for the reasons that we just spoke about, and not for the reason that if we don't do it many times, it won't work, right? It is for meditation. It is for that meditation on the property that we did once and once only, which is the only form of prayaschitta that we have to do. It is for spending our time. It is for enjoying the meditation on the Lord's auspicious qualities and form. It is for those reasons and those reasons only, which were just stated, and not for the reason that it has to be said many, many times to work. And if we think that, it will not work. If instead it is recited thinking that long recitation is required to reach the goal, then that siddhopaya, the means also being the end, right, which does not tolerate any other means, will slip away. Just as the brahmastra that had tied Sri Hanuman slipped away when the rope made of jute was also used to tie him. Thus far, the meanings of the first part of the Dwaya have been explained. So now we understand the first part of the Dwaya mantra. And we've also understood a little bit about the second part too, because we did discuss Shriman and we did discuss Narayana already. But we understand Shriman Narayana Charano Sharanam Prapadye fully. And we are now going to talk about Srimate Narayanaya Namaha. So, is there any questions about what we went through here today?
More appreciation, because I used to always, I probably have misunderstood that. And the explanation of Prapadye today that you've given has really given such wonderful clarity, because you have explained, that Ramanu just said that we should always chant it. And then when I'm meditating on the meaning, it makes me think, well, is it that every time I'm chanting is not, I'm saying that I'm surrendering at the lotus feet of the Lord? But now, as you have explained it here perfectly, that is so clear. And I really want to give my appreciation for the clarity that you've given, that when we meditate, and
it's not me. It's Pilalakacharya and Manavala Muni are saying it like that. And there is, and we have to also accept though that there are other understandings given by the northern acharyas, by Vedanta Deshika and the Vadagalaya acharyas, like that. They have it, but the problem comes if you when you look at their explanations, you see that it becomes problematic. It becomes problematic. You can't say in one breath that property is once and once only, and then say, except if this happens, then you have to do it again.
Yeah.
You have to explain. You have to rationalize why both those things are being mentioned in the Lakshmi Tantra, right? One verse after the other verse, they're being explained. What does it mean to chant Dwaya mantra again? The first time we do it, or the first time not even the first time we chant it verbally, but when we surrender, right? When there's mental acceptance of the Lord as Savior, that's property.
Mm-hmm.
Why it's just reminding us. It's just reminding us.
It's just a realization. Property. Yeah.
That's it.
And it's just meditating and reminding us of that moment. Exactly. That's amazing. That's amazing. And as you said, that when you go through the different gunas, when you come back to the mode of goodness, again, you're constantly remembering the grace that the Lord gave you at that particular point when you actually did Prapati. So that's really nice.
Yeah, and we shouldn't also be confused about all this idea of, okay, so it's nice if people come to the mode of goodness and everything like that, but whether or not they actually attain, everybody's got these different levels in their lives of goodness, passion, and ignorance, and as long as we're in this material body, we've got this mixture of the modes that are affecting us. So we shouldn't think that those things are impediments either. Those things are not impediments.
Yeah, definitely not. But it seems that, the way it's explained also, you think that when you kind of like really come back to your senses after you might be involved in something, Rajaguna, Tamoguna, or something like that. When you actually come back to your senses, that is really Sattva Guna anyway, when you remember again the grace of the Lord, isn't it? In that sense, in that way I look at it.
And therefore Ramanuja says, okay, always remember Dwayam, because he knows that as long as you're still in the material world, you may be affected by Rajas, Tamas, and whatever, even ordinary material sattva. So to always remember that property is good. It's definitely a good idea. Is it necessary? No.
Sure. And I like the point where you said that if you actually get into the habit of you just thinking, well, I have to keep on constantly chanting this, and that you could also lose the whole plot, thinking that is by constantly chanting this.
That is very heavy. That is something. If we tell that to other Vaishnavas, outside of Sri Vaishnavism, or even to the Wadagalis, if we say to them by constant repetition or blah blah blah, the upaya will slip away.
Yeah,
that's heavy. That's the point. Like that. We have that experience. We had that experience that we were given a mantra and we were told to chant that mantra many, many, many times. And if we didn't chant that mantra, what was our consciousness? Our consciousness was, I've got to finish the number. I've got to get it done. Oh, I didn't get it done. I'm feeling so bad, because I didn't get it done. I've got to make it up the next day or whatever it is. All these sort of things, or I'm not chanting purely, or I'm not doing it this way. I'm not, somehow or other, we become guilt-ridden because of being told and being convinced that it's a numbers game. It's not a numbers game, not at all. And
exactly.
if we think it is, like you say in England, we've lost the plot. We've lost the plot. It's not artificial like that. The Lord himself is the means. We have to never lose sight of that point. If we lose sight of that point, then somebody may think, oh, okay, we've got Hanuman, okay, so we'll tie him up with a Brahmastra mantra rope, and then now, but maybe he'll get through. So let's put another cord around it. It must be better, right? Is it better? It's better to put the cord, but because of the way that works, because of how property works because of faith. If there's no faith, there's no property.
Mm-hmm.
But that faith has to be there only once, initially, and then it worked. It's finished. It's out of your hands now, right? You're drowning. You said help one time. That's it. The lifeguard heard that, and the lifeguard is going to save you. Do you have to chant help, 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 help again? Thousands of times? Do you only get saved from drowning if you say help a minimum of 10 times or 20 times or 1,000 times? How many times do you have to say help? To the Supreme Lord, you just have to say one time. You just have to mentally, you don't even have to say it or do anything like that. You just have to indicate to him mentally that you're surrendered to him. You have to give up doing other things. When he sees, oh, look at this person. This person's giving up all these other sadhanas. He's giving up thinking. He's giving up thinking that he can attain perfection or liberation by doing this and this and this. He's giving up that idea. Not necessarily he's giving up doing bhakti or whatever it is, devotional acts, but he's giving up the idea. It's all mental. He's just giving up the idea. Once the Lord sees we're giving up the idea of any other refuge but him alone, then the Lord becomes our savior, right? When a lifeguard sees a person who might be in a little trouble, he says, look, this guy looks like he might be in a little trouble. Oh, but look, he's got a life jacket there. He's got a float ring there. He's trying to stay afloat. He'll be okay. So there's no need for me to jump in and save him like that. But when he sees that guy has nothing, no other refuge, there's nobody close to him to help him. There's nothing in the water that he can hold on to keep afloat. And he says, help. Then the lifeguard realizes, I am his only hope. He knows I'm his only hope. He is called out to me. I must save him, no matter what he does after that.
But this map point that the acharyas have made, that the last very, very heavy point, as you said, that if you think that only by chanting it that you will get liberation and the siddhopaya will slip away, you're taking that as hyperbole? Also, is it that if you lose that consciousness, you forget that the Lord alone is the savior, that you can risk that, you lost the plot and it wouldn't happen?
Yeah, it is hyperbole, because you do Sharanagati, you think of the Lord, you surrender to the Lord, that's it, finished. But no matter what you do or don't do after that, it's finished. The Lord takes over. So the guy, in the same drowning man example, okay, if somebody called out for one time help or something like that, I would go and I would go to that person Even if that person then said to me, no, I'm okay, I'm okay. No, I'm going to make sure you're okay. Right? It's my duty. It's my duty to go there and to make sure that that guy is okay. Not that he thinks he's okay and he's not really okay. Right? Okay. You see people, here in Hawaii, I went swimming with my wife. We went to one beach one time and we went out like that. And, we're older people and the lifeguards look and they see you go in and they see, oh, you look like you're competent the way you're going in the water and stuff like that. And they look at the water conditions. We also look at the water conditions. I know how to read the water. So we go in like that. We're going out like that. A guy came out on his board. And he just said to us, you guys okay? Yeah, we're okay. We're all right. Like that. I told him, and then he accepted that, like that. But he didn't just sit in his box on the sand. He had some genuine concern. These are older people, like that. Let me go out and just ask a few people. They seem like they're doing okay, but let me just ask, like that. So the Lord, once we resort to the Lord will never leave us. He's taking it as an excuse. This mental turning towards him, he just takes that as an excuse to save us, like that. Even if we later on, if we think, I was wrong, and in doing just property, what I really should be doing is chanting this and doing this sacrifice and doing this puja and doing this. That's what I really need to do. I really need to do that. Otherwise, I'm definitely not going to, make it. I don't have any faith in it anymore. Or blah blah blah. He doesn't care. He doesn't care you change your mind, right? He doesn't care about that, or if you fall away and you do something wrong, completely wrong or something like that. He doesn't care. That's not going to stop him from acting. It's not going to stop him from acting. He enjoys saving the souls. He just needs he just needs an excuse to do it. Just needs a little bit of an excuse to do it, like that. The lifeguard enjoys going and helping people in the water. You have to enjoy it to be a rescue diver or a rescue person like that. You have to enjoy dealing with people who don't want to be saved, who are crazy, panicking, and who are trying to kill you. At the same time, they're drowning. You have to enjoy overcoming all of those obstacles. These are obstacles which we put on ourselves. There's no obstacle to property, but we decide we're going to do this bad thing or that good thing, or we're going to give up faith in this or that. We decide to do all those things like that. The Lord is resolute. If we once and only mentally turn towards him, he takes that as an excuse and he saves us. Finished. Like that. No matter what. If you say, no, there's some qualification that has to be performed. You have to do this many times, or you have to do this at the time of death, or you have to have these qualifications. You have to be in Satvaguna. You have to give up the punyas and papas. If you make all these things, like even the Wadagalais, they don't make so many demands, right, that you do as other forms of religion or other forms of Vaishnavism, which talk about karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga. But because the Wadagalais also believe in property, but so that's also an easy path. But still, they still require certain things, certain qualifications. If you don't do this, this will happen to you. If you don't do this, that'll happen to you. Look what Vedanta Deshika says. Well, if you commit sin after property, then you may have to suffer a little bit longer in this material world to clear away that no.
That's why when they do Bharanyasam, they have to just be so constantly on guard.
Bharanyasam. So Bharanyasam is their property. Bharanyasam is their property. The whole Pancha Samskara and Samashranam, they don't consider it Samashranam. Pancha Samskara. They do Pancha Samskara. It's approaching the Guru and getting instruction and everything like that. The real Bharanyasa comes at property. They want to do it when they're really old, when they're not going to sin anymore. I did my business dealings. I've had my householder life. I've had my teenage years. I've been through all these things. And I've been the wild child, and now I am retired. and I'm too old. My senses are dulled, and I don't need to do any of that stuff anymore. And therefore, I'm going to say I won't eat outside my house, and I'll only eat sattvic food, and I won't break any of these rules, and I won't criticize Vaishnavas, and I won't what was the other thing? Anyway, they have
Worship devas.
Yeah, I won't worship any other devas. Worshipping other devas means appealing to other living beings as means to other goals.
Mm-hmm.
So I won't do any of that. I won't do any of that now. I've known since I was a kid, because I'm born a Sri Vaishnava, I've known since I was a kid I shouldn't have done any of those things. But up until now, I've been doing them, and but only now I'll stop doing them. So now I'll do proper. Now I'll get serious, right? The problem is people die before. Look at COVID. Look at what's happening now. People are dying before they get to that stage. So then it's not useful. No, if we believe in property, we have to do it here and now.
Which is just a realization.
If we really understand that we're drowning, if you really understand you're drowning, then you have to ask for help from the lifeguard right here and right now. And you have to surrender unto that. Otherwise, you'll drown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. Wonderful. A lot of realization coming from that.
Okay, so we still have second half of Dwaya Mantra, and then we have the whole Charma Sloka. So next week, we'll talk about Dwaya Mantra Part 2.
Okay, Swami. Thank you.
Jai Shri Narayana.
Jai Shri Narayana. Jai.